Hey everyone, welcome. I feel like I'm shorter. There we go, right there. Yeah. Welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast. While Mike leaves us for just a minute, unexpectedly, if only he'd warned us. So, Russ, how are you doing? How's your weekend?
Good. Weekend was good. A couple of interesting things while my dog cries, and eventually I'll get her a bone. She was dead asleep a minute ago.
I've got mine right here too. Yeah, go ahead.
I have to mention something about the Eagles game. Shush it. Because
I was watching that great game.
Well, Bill Belichick did a great thing. He was on his coach's call during the week, and he warmed up the media. He basically was like, "Oh, Philly was great. I used to come here with my dad. I love it in Philly." So he sets the media back, right? Everybody comes up that call. Like, hey, Belichick's pretty good guy. Then in the game, Tom Brady literally has the worst game I've ever seen him play.
He does.
But because the Eagles have no wide receivers and can't stretch the field, and I spoke to Ed Benking about this during the Flyers game because he covers the Eagles, and I said, if they can't, I watched the Patriots enough to know that if you can't stretch the field against them, they will eventually close things in and make it very hard. And if you noticed at the end, Carson Wentz, he couldn't even get downfield when it mattered. So
I know.
That is all a function of Belichick with second half adjustments and the Eagles knowing if a team like the Patriots know that you only have two tight ends, you're in trouble. And they eventually figured that out.
Yeah. There's no question. I mean, they are, like him or hate him, and no one except for people living in Boston seem to like him.
Right.
But he's one of the best coaches around. I mean, in any sport. And he absolutely gets inside people's heads. There's no question about that. He knows what he's doing all the time when he makes these kind of proclamations. But the Patriots
second half adjustments better than any coach in the game. And the Eagles coach Doug Peterson doesn't make good second half adjustments.
Actually, he does, but the Eagles are usually horrible in the first half. So
I kind of questioned the second half adjustment. The other thing is also there's never really a threat with the Eagles to throw the ball to the running back.
Yeah.
If you do that, at least a running back could break one for 30, 40 yards. I want to say their longest play of the day was like 35 yards.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. And I think that, I don't know enough about football to really talk about it beyond just their normal things. But I was a quarterback. I was a quarterback growing up. So I know about the game. I quarterbacked all the way into my high school. But the one thing I've noticed with Wentz, and I really like Wentz, is a great guy, HockeyBuzz fan, by the way, and North Dakota hockey guy as well. But he doesn't seem to pick up guys who are going to block his passes. He throws way too low. It's just.
But a lot of guys get blocked passes these days.
They do for sure. But the idea of I don't know. I mean, obviously he played in a small town college team, and I think that sometimes plays into that too. Like he doesn't not used to that necessarily.
I'll give you the one alarming thing about Carson Wentz, and you as a quarterback could attest to this. The one thing I've noticed about him is like that last play of the game, he couldn't even reach the end zone, 58 yards.
I know. I noticed that too.
That is something that never used to be. When he first came into the league, his arm strength was better than that. I don't want to go back to guys like Burt Jones and Joe Namath, whatever, but they could throw 60, 70 yards in the air, no problem. And there are guys in this league that can. Brady can't. Although I got to tell you, I think Brady was able to throw it just as far as Carson Wentz, even at his age. So to me, there's something going on a little bit there with Wentz, and maybe that's the hand injury. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, he does make better plays when he's just completely scrambling. Like that is his best game. And and like the pass he almost pulls off, not the one, I guess the final like Hail Mary throw or what have you, but the one before that kills the drive, where he's like falling backwards and at the 40 throws it into the almost out of the end zone, without any leverage at all. Like so, there's weird things there. It just to me, it's not arm strength. When I saw that play, I'm like, geez, how many people can do that? How many people can throw it falling backwards with both feet stationary, throw it for almost 50 yards?
Not many, but I do want to say the Jets have won 2 in a row, and Sam Darnold threw 4 touchdowns. So at least it gives hope. I do feel bad for Tua, the college quarterback who got creamed over the weekend.
I have to say it's impossible to feel optimistic about Josh Allen this week after having a really good game because it was against Miami, and Miami sucks so bad. that and he's had good games against them before. So you really can't. I mean, that's the state of the NFL right now. There are teams out there that suck so bad that a team really can't get any kind of gauge of how good they are if they play Cincinnati or Washington or Miami. It's sad. It's gotten to be like baseball, where you have a bunch of teams that look like they're tanking, and they put that kind of record up, and as opposed to, and there's sort of the haves and the have-nots. And I mean, for those fan bases, I mean, because Buffalo has been in that for a long, long time, and only this year, I mean, their record is 7-3, but I think normally if they didn't have a really easy schedule, they'd be about a 500 team. So
yeah, I do want to mention. I want to go back to Tua for a minute because I saw some NFL.
I'm sorry the Panda yawned a couple times during that diatribe, Mike, but
I want to say with Tua, there was an NFL reporter. I don't know who it was. I forget. Who was like, well, you see, this is why college players need to get paid so they can get benefits or whatever. That's not why they need to get paid. Actually, if Tua is smart, he doesn't go out for the NFL draft. He stays in college. They're not going to nullify his scholarship, and he needs to make sure he's going to class and doing all the right things so he could prepare in case he doesn't have a career via football. What that did was that highlighted that to me, like, hey, you've got the opportunity with a big-time program there, with a very valuable scholarship.
Yeah.
I hope he's using it.
Well, I'll say this, and we can get started talking hockey. I was at the Sabres-Senators game on Saturday, and the Tua injury happened on Saturday afternoon, and there was somebody on Twitter, I don't know, I can't remember the name, but it was some guy who was a medical doctor. Right. And he was saying, well, this is an injury very similar to Bo Jackson and blah, 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 blah. And he's going on and on about, well, this is going to be career threatening. And I'm telling this fellow reporter this, and he's like, I would love to send this guy a message and ask him like how it was that he was being able to examine Tua when he was like in some other place, because you can't really tell the extent of an injury watching it on TV. And somebody who's going on social media and giving a point by point analysis of how severe the injury is, it's just sort of like out there in the ether, and it's worth nothing. So it's like, just shut up.
Yeah, no question. It's crazy. All right, let's get started.
Sure.
All right, here we go. What we're going to talk about today.
I have no idea.
Nothing.
We had a chat that we had to stop in our chat between our lists earlier because we said we have to talk about this on the show instead.
Oh, yeah, because
we're going to bore the tears out of some of you guys, but it has to be talked about. Here you ready?
Yep.
Hello, Hockey World. What's the date today? Goodness gracious.
November 18th.
AC, you got it wrong too. November 18th. Yep. Okay, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday. It's Monday. It's a Monday thing. All right, here we go.
Come on, man. You can do it.
I got it. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, November 18th, 2019.
Oh, my God.
I'm Michael Agello. I think.
I'm Russ Cohen. Like, I don't even know what to say.
If I can mess it up, I will. I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday, and every 27th Thursday to fill you on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today we're going to start off with a little dates are hard, a little bit of a debate here, because this is continuing and it's probably not going to go anywhere, but we're going to start anyway. I talked to a really good source, and I don't usually post it like Saturday nights, 8:30 at night or whatever, but I talked to a really good source, and then who said, you have to check into this. At this point, the Penguins are up 5-0 on the Maple Leafs. And what are you eating? Sorry, I had a dog eating something behind me. As you know, this story rests pretty well.
Yeah.
Are you eating anything dangerous? Hold on. Be right back. I have to check. Mike, I apologize. 1 second, kids.
Okay.
That game, we're
talking about the Leafs. The Leafs.
Right.
I got it. I'll continue. Sorry. Here I continue. Ready? Here we go. All right. Apologize. Plastic. All right. So so at 8:30 I get this call, and it says you have to. I'm hearing things about Babcock again, and now the Leafs are down 5-0 at this point in the second period against the Penguins, which I didn't even know because I was running around. I didn't know the score of the games yet, and And then, of course, I check into it and I call a source of mine who used to work in the Leafs organization, who's a really good guy, and say, "What do you think about this?" And he says to me, "Yeah, I think there's definitely something to it in that Sheldon Keefe has been put on alert, sort of. He's what he heard, and that this could move quicker than anyone thinks." That's what I heard. So I posted that out there, and then Mike, who's been hearing all year that he's got the whole season from good sources as well. And then Drager today comes out and says, this is not looking like him at all here. So not looking like Babcock is going to get moved. And I just wonder, and the whole concept, Mike, you can make your argument so I can debate it, because why do you think this still isn't happening? Or this can't happen?
A number of reasons. And I'm not defending Mike Babcock as some people think I am, but I'm just reading the situation. They've made all these changes. It was expected in a way for them to struggle a little bit early on because they changed 1/3 of the roster. There are some players, there's been key injuries. There have been some players who have played pretty badly, well below expectations. You can say that may be because of the way Babcock is using them, like Tyson Barrie. I think Tyson Barrie's playing in the top four. He's playing 20+ minutes a night. They may want him to play a way that is not conducive to how he plays the game, but there is opportunity, and he has failed miserably so far. But okay. But the way I read the situation here is they've lost 5 in a row. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I think that's the big thing more than anything. That is the valid criticism of Babcock, is that for a coach that was always good at getting his team to buy in and playing defensive hockey in Detroit. He did that early on with the Leafs, but lately this team has just continued to be dreadful in their own zone and don't even seem to be playing any kind of system, which I find it hard to believe that Babcock isn't teaching them a defensive system. It's either they're incapable or unwilling to play that defensive system. So now they've lost 5 games in a row, and everybody thinks like they're in the bottom 5 of the league. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot.
Oh yeah, they're not. I mean, they're not out of it at all. It's not a matter of them being out of it. I mean,
it's just the direction that they're going.
Yeah, it's apathy. Like apathy is a horrible thing. Of all the things that you don't want, it's apathy. Like
and the one observation of Babcock made after the Pittsburgh game was, Pittsburgh scored a goal 4 minutes into the first period, and it just seemed like the Leafs said, "Take me, I'm yours." That's like, I mean, the one thing you can tell with a hockey team is the difference between struggling and apathetic. There's a big difference there. And that I'm not saying the Leafs are at apathetic yet. Yeah. But they are showing signs of it. You know what I mean? And by the time you reach apathetic, you're in big trouble. You can't get there. Like you can't let it get there. And that to me, and what I worry about, like, and the argument that many have made, and you made this too as well in the text, is that, giving Sheldon Keefe this situation now would be horrible. Right. And I said to Russ when we talked earlier this morning, if say, for example, they lose, they're on a 6-game road trip starting tomorrow in Vegas. If they lose 4 of 6 or 5 of 6 and they fire Babcock, there is a very good chance that the new interim head coach of the Leafs will not be Sheldon Keefe, but will be Dave Hackstall. And this is when I lost my mind, Mike, and I couldn't take a long way to talk, because
probably true.
But what? Okay, why? Go ahead, Russ. You go first.
No, because look, I'm not saying it's right, but I think Mike is probably right about this. I think there's 2 things here. When Brian Burke goes on the radio and says, "Yeah, it's fair to question Babcock, but just know what happens when you fire a coach."
Right.
That's Burke's way of saying, "Yeah, you know what? He could get fired." Because Burke's seen it before.
Right. Burke's never a fan of firing coaches. We know that. Burke hates coaching firing. He always thinks the players get off easy when the coach is fired.
But he also said, but he also said that the players should be embarrassed for the way they played in front of Kaskisulo, and I said the same thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's always nice to say you could blame the players, but if it's all the players, the coach is the one that's going to take the fall.
And you can take Michael Hutchinson and Kazimir Kaskisuo off the hook for how they've played over the first 6 games. They're 0-5-1 collectively, the 2 backups, playing in the second of back-to-back games. Kaskisuo made a bunch of good saves in the first and second period. The team hung him out to dry, and they did the same thing to Hutchinson. This team, they are at this point so far completely incompetent defensively.
But I feel like, again, like the back-to-back is going to absolutely, the second game is going to be the backup thing still gets to me, because it's like, Who are you playing? You're playing the Penguins. I mean, granted, in this situation, you're playing the Bruins the first game, and I know that you have 2 good teams you're playing there, right? So that's a tough spot to be in. You got to, if you absolutely don't think your goalie could possibly play back-to-back nights, which is so ridiculous.
Well, that's where Babcock's and that's stupid comes into it, because like earlier in the year, I think it was the first back-to-back, they played in Columbus on a Friday night. They played at home against Montreal on Saturday. He always starts Anderson in the first of back-to-back with a rested team, and always hangs the backup out to dry in the second one with a tired team. And in that situation, they got the win over Columbus easily, and they were leading 4-1 in the third period and lost and ran out of gas and lost 6-5 in a shootout. And that's sort of symptomatic of what's been happening with the Leafs in second back-to-backs.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this is the thing. Like, you might be right, Mike, like Resta, and I own question. I mean, you know more about the Leafs than I do. I'm talking to people that are there. You're there. But the people I talk to say that you have to be very wary of the talking points versus the reality of the situation here.
Well, and that I'm not ruling out the possibility that Babcock will get fired in the next couple weeks if this continues to just go in the direction, loss after loss, them getting blown out, just sort of the apathy that you're talking about, then they may have no choice. But what I'm talking about here is I've been told by people that he's going to get the season. Now, if they collapse, then that's, if they lose 10, 12 in a row, then that all bets are off.
When was the last time you were told by somebody they would get, like, actually, because remember, there's with every, like we always say, with every rumor, there's expiration date. Last week, okay. Yeah,
recently,
not within this losing streak, right?
Yeah, not when they're 9-4.
Right. No, there's always expiration date on every rumor, as I say.
Sure.
And
but this is why I say that the chances of them putting Hackstall in as an interim could be the move instead of elevating Sheldon Keefe, because you can't fire 23 players, you can fire a coach. So, but are you going to put, and this is Dubas's first choice as a coach, and the guy that everybody knows is the guy that he hired in Sault Ste. Marie, the guy that he hired for the Marlies. This is his guy. It's not a question of who the next coach will be.
Oh yeah, no, there's not a question.
It's a question of when. And after this situation where he's made moves, I think, that have not been conducive to the type of team that Babcock wants. He is not going to put his chosen guy as a head coach in a situation which is not the best for him. He will have an offseason to make changes to the roster, recognizing that there were some errors, and I think Keefe would be the coach next year if they fire Babcock or if they lose in the first round. But I don't think that they'll fire Babcock unless it just gets really bad for a really long time.
But think about this. There's a certain amount of absurdity that is going on. Jeremy Bracco is a good example, because last year he had 79 points in an AHL season, so more than a point a game, 22 goals, more than a point a game in the playoffs, which is enough to get anybody a job to start the season. Right. He's almost a point a game this season, and yet he can't get a sniff. Right. That all falls on Babcock.
Right. Babcock can't. Well, and Nick Patan has had 3 chances so far this year. At a certain,
he has NHL experience. That's the out for Babcock.
Right. But what I'm saying is, at a certain point, because Patan has 2 assists in 8 games and has been a liability defensively when they've used him. At a certain point, you say, okay, we've given him chances. Maybe he's not in the top 6, but he's in the top 9. Sometimes he's on the 4th line, and he really hasn't stood out that much. So. They may bring up an Igor Korshkov. He's a bigger player, or Pierre Engvall, who's a bigger player. That's the thing. Babcock likes players playing a certain way, and this team is not set up to play Babcock heavy hockey. They're set up to play with speed and skill and with size not mattering, and that's not the type of game that that Babcock wants to play. But I don't know whether he can adapt to playing that type of game. So I almost, I have to give a little bit of the blame right now for their failings on Kyle Dubas and his setting up the team to succeed based on what the coach needs. And if they don't succeed this year, luckily they lottery protected the first round pick that they traded to Carolina. And it would be a dramatic disappointment, because I thought that, adding Barry, adding CC as opposed to him over Zaitsev, and adding Muzzin last year, that their defense was significantly better. What this shows me is it's not the blue line. It's the entire team. There is no buy-in to this team playing team defense. They're not interested. They're interested in scoring. And that's great, but you can't win by just scoring. You have to pay the price at the other end of the ice.
All right, so here's where these are things that would get a coach fired. So the Leafs are 3.18 goals for, 3.41 goals against.
Right.
That falls on the coach.
And their special teams are in the tank right now. Their power play with Tavares
16.7%.
Yeah, with Tavares, Matthews, Marner for a time, Nylander, and Morgan Riley, and Andreas Janssen is 21st or 22nd. Their penalty killing is even worse, and that's, I think, a product of the fact that everybody who was a penalty killer on the team last year is playing either an Ottawa.
No, but at least you're right about that. But you said Hackstall's on the penalty kill, right?
Yes.
But the penalty kill is sufficient compared to other NHL teams. They're not in the 80 percentile, but they're in the 75 percentile, which isn't great, but they're not the worst by far. Like, there's other teams right in that area, 74.6, 75.3. So they could at least make that excuse for Hackstall. But the power play, there is no excuse. And the goal for goal against, there is no excuse.
And I think one of the things that is a valid criticism of Babcock is his inflexibility in terms of adjusting. You have somebody who is a better power play point man than Morgan. I like Morgan Riley. He's a very talented player. He's a gifted offensive player. He is not a point man in a power play because nobody respects his shot. Tyson Barrie is a better power play quarterback. Now, Tyson Barrie has struggled. And I understand if Babcock doesn't want to reward a player who's not playing well, but that might be a way of getting him jump-started by putting him on the power play and letting him, tee up some shots, one-timers from the point. They're not getting the puck to John Tavares enough on the power play. It's been focused on getting one-timers from Marner and Matthews, and that really hasn't worked that well. I saw that Funky in the chat here was saying they miss Jake Gardner. No, they don't.
No, I don't think they do. But again,
and by the way, Funky, I saw Jake Gardner play against Buffalo last week. He gave away the puck twice, so Jake Gardner is still Jake Gardner.
Let's talk about Freddie Anderson though, because I've been in more than a few rinks this year and keep hearing how Freddie Anderson doesn't win the big games. And so if you look at him, he's got a .912 save percentage. That's hovering right around league average, maybe slightly above. But that's it. And his playoff save percentage is .916 career, which isn't fantastic. The problem with this is, and the only reason I bring it up, I'm not necessarily a subscriber of what I just said, but I see both sides. The problem is, if the Leafs aren't an overwhelming powerhouse in the playoffs, they may not have a goalie that's going to get them out of it. That's the point.
All I can say is this. I look at his last 4 years. 919, 918, 918, 917. This year he's 912. He's got all 9 of their victories. They have a chance to win when he's in the lineup. He covers up a lot of their ills.
He does. No, he does.
And this is the thing. And this is, I think, the main failing of Kyle Dubas so far as general manager was the first move that he made, which was waving McElhinney and going with Sparks, because their backup goaltending since then has been abysmal. They haven't been able to find anybody who can stop a puck at the right time. And the team has a a large part in that, but also the goaltender. It's the confidence they have in the goaltender, and the fact that if the goaltender lets the first shot in, then they're not exactly confident.
Yeah,
I can't put the losses in the playoffs on Frederik Andersen when he's playing 66, and 60 games. You've got needed to find a backup goaltender who could play 30 games, and his answer was the chronically injured Michael Neuwirth.
I'm going to say this, though. While I do see Andersen making great saves, I do see some where they're ridiculously bad, too.
Right.
He's unbelievably hard to beat in tight. But when you get out, when point shots and stuff like that, and you can get him.
Craig Andersen, as an example, has 4 or 5 years where he's anywhere from 921 to 941 in a save percentage. Andersen doesn't even get close to that.
Yeah, and the thing it also comes down to, for the playoffs, it does come down to him, unfortunately, because it just comes when you get to a game 7, and getting even some of the games that got him to game 7 were games he came up short in.
And I can only say this: in both series, he played better against Boston last year than the previous year. But in both series against Boston, in the later games, facing as many shots as he did, facing that Boston power play, he was gassed, and that's direct.
But is that gassed because of the?
Because the
65 games are not crazy amount. They're not crazy numbers. I mean, they're not great. I mean, you would like him to play.
Standards, they're high. That's all.
For his age, I guess they are, but they're not crazy numbers.
All I'm saying is, if the Leafs ever come to the realization, and maybe this year could be it, that all of a sudden he's not the guy, then there is a gap between what they have with Andersen and what's on the farm to help them.
Right.
And that could be a problem too.
They have 2 years to find out whether Joseph Woll or Ian Scott can develop into a future number 1.
None of those guys are with this core, though. This core has to be this core is big. The next it's Tavares' core. So look at Tavares is the oldest part of the core, right? So this is his core, and he's what, 29 now?
29.
Okay, yeah. So when you look at this, that you got 3 or 4 more years. You got to let a goalie develop for 3 or 4 more years. No, they got to go make it. They got to make a trade or something.
That's why I'm saying they have 2 years while Anderson's under contract to see if Joseph Woll, who was their 3rd round pick from a couple years ago, or Ian Scott, who played for Team Canada at the World Junior last year, are on the track to being a NHL goaltender. And if they're not after those 2 years, then they're either going to re-sign Andersen or go in another direction. But Andersen is not the problem.
I will give you a
segment.
He's not
the problem. I know this is a team defense issue. I know that all those things for sure. But the thing I do think that if they're not going to change the coach, they're going to have to do something big and make a move for a actual.
All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. Because a team that did make a move was the New Jersey Devils, and we knew when they picked up Louis Domingue, that probably meant that one of their goalies, most likely Schneider, wasn't going to be around much longer. He is now in Binghamton, and I'm assuming Louis Domingue's going up.
Well, he's in Binghamton if he doesn't get claimed.
Domingue was called up already. He's already
right. So the question is, why weren't the Leafs ever interested in Louis Domingue? He was out there.
Big question mark there.
He makes too much money. They're up against.
There's always a way to make it work out, though, Mike.
No,
you can.
They obviously didn't think that Louis Domingue was as significantly better than Michael Hutchinson or Kazimir Kaskasuo. And
now it's going to be even harder for them if they feel like they have to get a goalie. That's my point.
I agree, and that's probably the reason why that Dubas is coming out saying we're going to give Kaskasuo a look.
Right.
Because if he says we're looking for a goaltender, then the price of poker just went up.
Yeah.
Now, Steve James in the chat says, who would I trade off this Leafs team for who and why? I mean, they're not. And Elliot Friedman reported on the weekend that, Barry has been a dismal failure. He's in the walk year of his contract. At a certain point, he's going to say, if this isn't working, maybe trade me someplace else where I can put up some numbers, because this is costing me millions of dollars. And it would probably be beneficial for the Leafs if they're going in this direction with Barry playing this badly. They have some options. They could promote to other people, maybe get a defenseman back in the deal and recoup the draft pick, some of the draft picks they traded, where I think, Barry, especially Barry at less than $3 million, would be somebody that would be attractive to teams looking for a power play quarterback. So I think they could get a pretty good return on him, even though that he's played badly for them.
Yeah.
But we're talking about after the year, and I continue to say this, and I know the analytics people will lose their minds, but I'm telling you right now, a guy like William Nylander making $7 million. He's got 8 goals this year. He's played better. He fits well with Matthews, but Matthews plays well with everybody.
Yeah.
You can find other players to play with Matthews, and you can get a defenseman or maybe a goaltender if you believe, if you think that that's a problem in a deal for Nylander. He would be the first guy, if you're talking about the big guys on this team, that I would move. I wouldn't move Kapanen. I wouldn't move Janssen. I wouldn't.
They honestly don't have a lot of trade options. They don't.
Right. Nylander is the one guy. I think they have depth on the wing and the organization. He's on a reasonable deal. You would get a good return from him, especially if he scores 30 goals this year, which he's on a pace to do. I think that Nylander is the one that makes the most sense. But of course, that people will be attacking me on Twitter right now.
No, I mean, I think that is the way to go too. I
think he's attractive cash wise because teams won't have to pay a lot cash wise for him.
Right.
Cap hit, sure, but the cash, the Leafs have paid a lot of the cash already.
Right.
I just don't know. Like, to me, the issue is here. Like, this is a team that's built for this year. They're built to win now. They have all these unrestricted free agents on defense. They're not some of them working out. Some of them aren't. You talked about Barry, who's not working out right now, but could change if a different coach comes in there.
Right.
I think
Cody Ceci has been widely criticized for how he has played. I don't think Cody Ceci has played as badly as some people. He is a target of the analytics crowd. So they
no. And what do you expect out of Ceci? You want to get you're getting everything you can get out of him, which is fine.
Well, this is the thing. He's not a top pairing defenseman.
Right.
He likes left-right combos. He's put him with Morgan Riley.
And this is the thing. This is where we're at. Babcock, left-right combos. You start the starting goalie in the first games of back-to-backs. None of this stuff can be flying with Dubas and Keefe. Like, if you think about it, and Dubas and Sheldon Keefe are talking a lot about.
But I think
that when that discussion was made for Sparks, that was made by Dubas and Keefe because Sparks had played really well in the AHL. But coming up.
But I think that again, I'm going to say it again. I think they'll let Babcock do what he wants to do until he buries himself. And then until there's
if he hasn't buried himself right now, this is it. I mean, he's not going to bury himself. This is buried his. He's a good coach.
I'm saying burying himself by his own limitations. If he continues to do this and it continues to not work, then there's no doubt that he has to be fired.
Yeah, no, they're going to have to. I mean, they have the ability to be like this year's St. Louis Blues to way. They have like all this talent, and they have and we talked about like the Blues last year. They brought in a lot of changes, just like the Leafs did this year. They brought in a lot of changes. It took the Blues a while to get going, but big part of that Blues revival was the change of coach, which enabled them to go.
And it's not without precedent when it comes to Babcock, because if you remember that one year with the Wings, when they brought up Gustav Nyquist and a couple other young players, they had a second half where they were incredible and made the playoffs after looking like they were going to be like a bottom 5 team. So I'm not ready, and I don't think the Leaf organization is ready to pitch Babcock off. Push.
What is this? And I'll leave it with this. We move on. But what is the best case scenario here? Like, that Babcock turns this thing around and is your coach for the next however many years? Like, does anyone think that's honestly going to happen? Or is it going to be Babcock is going to play well enough that he keeps his job through the regular season but gets fired after the playoffs?
I will continue to say that everything rides on how they do in the playoffs.
Okay, well, they got to get to the playoffs, obviously.
If they don't get to the playoffs, he's fired. If they do get to the playoffs and he loses in the first round, he's probably fired. If he gets past the first round and they look like a team that is on a positive upward track, then he keeps his job for another year. I think that's the scenario.
We should have a TED Talk about the Philadelphia Flyers for a minute.
Let's move on. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
Morgan Frost has been called up.
They called up Morgan Frost.
Yes.
And I think they called him up at the worst possible time, because it's not like he was riding a hot streak or anything, but maybe it's for a cup of coffee to put a little spark into him. That's my take on it. If it's anything other than that, I think it's misguided because, and I'll give you a good example. So the game the other day against the Islanders, when they're up 3-0 going into the third, now most thought that the Islanders played a really good second, but the Flyers one shot went in and the Islanders shots just weren't going in. And so I spoke to Cal Clutterbuck about that after the game, because he's a straight shooter. And And he said, look, sometimes there's those games where nothing's going to go in, right? And you just lose. Yep. But they didn't feel that way. They weren't even worried that in Philly, they were down 3-0. They weren't even worried that they were out of that game.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is something that's going to be going around the league playing against the Flyers, because now they're having trouble holding leads, and they play so much better than at home than they do on the road. And none of this is a function of AV, and all of it is a function of the veteran core that's still there that they can't seem to get all playing at the right time. I'm tired of seeing how many shots on goal Giroux, JVR, all these guys have. It really is meaningless. Unless they're going in, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is definitely on the core. And I mean, I'm not going to say that, I'm thrilled with all of Vigneault's line choices. I think
you're always going to find
they're always going to find issues with that. But I mean, that game was a combination of a Flyers team that got nervous and that started to crumble, and also an Islanders team that just has so much crazy confidence right now. Like, that Islanders team has won so many games in a row, and they've been in situations where they just believe they're in and they've got a coach that keeps them in that. They just believe that they're in every game, and that's and Greiss making some big saves too at key times and different situations like that too that came up throughout that game. I mean, the Islanders are still, I don't think there's any question they're the best team in the division.
Right now, today they are.
And I mean and that's a division with the Caps. And the Capitals are
the Capitals. I think are a better team overall. I do.
I think they are overall, and I think in a playoff series, I would go with the Caps. But but right now, the consistency of the Islanders is just insane, and it's
Yeah, I did want to also mention that when look, Oscar Lindblom, we all agreed last year was probably misused by Dave Haxtell, and he's having a great year. But when you continually talk about Joel Farabee like he's one of the best players on the team, but he only has 5 points, your team is in trouble. And again, they're almost using Joel Farabee to spark the veteran players, because Farabee does have some spring in his step. He does make some good plays. He does have giveaways too. But right now they're overlooking that because their offense is so bad. And
I want to throw something out about Farabee-Giroux combination. They're the same player. Like, when I watch them play, they are the same player. And don't forget. I mean, I don't know if there's
Giroux has a higher skill level than Farabee, though. He does.
Yeah, and he does. He always has had. But Farabee probably is a little bit. He's bigger, a little bit tougher.
Yeah, a little tougher. Maybe even a better shot.
But remember, Farabee. I haven't gotten a chance to ask him this question yet. Why he was number 28? Growing up. But I wouldn't be shocked if he said, "Well, I really looked up to Claude Giroux as a role model," because they do play the same kind of game. And what happens in a lot of situations when you put players that play the same game together is that they end up running into each other. And you see that with Giroux and Farabee. You do see them in the same spots often, and this is why, Couturier and Giroux work so well together. They play totally different games. Farabee and Giroux play very similar games. And that's a really tough one to me. Like that's starting to get to me. And they are using it, and they're going to use Morgan Frost now in the same way, I'm sure. Both these guys, are their future. They've been saving. I mean, the amount of times they haven't traded Morgan Frost when they could have over the years is incredible. Right. So they're not going to. They're going to ride that as much as they possibly can. He's been in every trade rumor that every team's wanted Morgan Frost. So they're going to make sure that he gets a serious shot.
Well, couple teams. I think we're going to touch on this. Couple teams that are really in trouble when it comes to injuries. The Buffalo Sabres, if the Sabres tweeted out their injury report from this weekend, they lost Kyle Oposo again to a concussion. He's out indefinitely.
Yeah.
Sobotka was hurt in Sweden. Johan Larsson was hurt in the game I think it was against Carolina. They call up Tage Thompson, Russ, and he dislocates his shoulder in 3 to 5 weeks. So. And they have like a half dozen injuries to players down in Rochester. So you wanted to see the correction. And this is the problem. The Sabres did not have a lot of depth going into the season or going after last season, and they added 3 or 4 players to improve the depth. Now, with all these injuries, that's sort of negated.
Yeah, but this is piling on after the fact, the injuries. I don't think the injuries are what started them on this path. I don't.
Right, and the only game that they've won, I believe, in the last 10 games was on Saturday when Jack Eichel took the team on his back and scored 4 goals. I mean, this is the situation with the Sabres. it's not going to get blamed on Botterill. It's obviously not going to get blamed on Ralph Kruger. This is a situation where the new coach comes in and he evaluates the team for a couple months, and they're going to look at the team and say, okay, we need to make changes. Now,
this team, they started off hot, and I think they started dipping before the injuries. Now, the problem is with the injuries, they're in a tailspin that they may not be able to get out of because –
right. Yeah. And the other team that I think is going to get hurt dramatically by injury is Montreal. They lose Drouin, and he's going to be out. They say at least a month, maybe more than like 2 with after having wrist surgery. And Paul Byron, who's one of their other really good forwards, has a knee injury. I don't know where they get goals. It's going to be Brendan Gallagher and Thomas Tatar, and who else? I mean,
it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, you can just put so much of a burden on Shea Weber and Carey Price and expect them to carry them through. I mean, Russ, does this mean – I know that maybe they'll call up Paling if he's not hurt still. They'll give Suzuki an opportunity.
He's been playing well. He's scoring goals for them. He's already in the lineup scoring goals. So that there's no issue with Suzuki. And I think Paling is up there too now. I think he is.
Yeah, I think he got called up. But, I mean, now it's going to be a situation where they're going to give these guys significant ice time and give them an opportunity. I mean, but without Drouin, without Byron, I mean, those are 2 of your better scorers, and that's going to be –
So, Eck, I don't know what you think about this, but for all the worry that there was about the San Jose Sharks – they're starting to level off, and I know there was a 6-0 game the other day with Vegas, but there's a lot of things that I don't like about that Vegas team. I have to be honest.
Yeah, I really think that Vegas team is, it's funny. There was such a temptation in the beginning of the year when picking my spots to have them out of the playoffs, because it was just like it felt like at some point, things have the universe has to balance itself, right?
Yeah.
It just feels like the hockey universe just does that kind of thing, and it feels like it's doing it now because there's so much of that team was such an intricate balance of things, and also Marc-Andre Fleury has to be unbelievable. Like, and he has to play a bunch of games, and what they aren't doing is they're not playing Marc-Andre Fleury a bunch of games. They're resting him, and that has definitely changed.
Well, I think they have to because
they definitely have to. But it's changed their record.
They realize what teams like the Leafs don't. Though it's for Marc-Andre Fleury to carry them through the playoffs, to be a difference maker in the playoffs. He's 34, 35 years old. He cannot play 65 games.
But he is going to. He's leading the league in games. He's at 17 games already.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm saying they're gonna have to either develop some confidence in Malcolm Subban or go out and find themselves a backup who can play games. Otherwise, again, Fleury will be spent just like Anderson will be spent. You cannot play. I think we've learned the lesson of what has happened in the last couple of years with Tuukka Rask and Halak in Boston, where Tuukka Rask played, I think, 43 or 45 games, and Binnington and Jake Allen last year with St. Louis. Now, Binnington played a ton of games in a row, second half, but he only played around 40 and then went through the playoffs. You cannot play your goaltenders 60, 70 games and expect them to be fresh as a daisy when April comes around.
Yeah, he's on pace for about 68 games, and he also took some shots from Brady Tkachuk and gave them back to Brady Tkachuk. And those kinds of things are not going to help him this season. They're just not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we should give a certain allotment of time to the Western Conference version of the Maple Leafs, which is the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, I want to get to them in 1 second. I will, but I wanted to do a quick prospect thing, and then we move to Calgary. But I was been following this too. The Alexis Lafreniere has actually just been unbelievable this year. And it's hard to say. Like, he's got 50 points now in 23 games. Mm-hmm. Really great article, by the way, by Kevin Allen on his agent, the female agent, which is really great. But check that out on USA Today. But the people are starting to want. And is this kid definitely now the guy? Russ, is he taking it over?
No, he's always been the guy.
Always been the guy, because I always was hearing that there was all different people.
He's been the presumptive #1 pick since last draft.
There was some Quentin Byfield talk because the kid who skates well, has a lot of points himself. Yeah, but this is just a situation of watching Lafreniere too much and maybe thinking somebody else has a chance. I never felt like anybody has a chance. But no, this guy is a franchise generational player. He is.
That's exciting.
He's going to change somebody's fortunes by becoming a part of that team.
Feels like he's destined for the LA Kings in my mind. I don't know why, but just we'll see what happens. We'll do the draft.
If he's got somebody like him, it would really help their overall problem.
Yeah, that's what they need, but it'll probably end up on the Devils because that's how things go.
Detroit, Ottawa.
There's a lot of teams.
Yeah. There's a lot of teams that could get him. It just feels like that. At some point the Kings need that. I keep feeling that'll happen. Anyway, we'll get into where that, but later. But I did see him hit the 50-point gauge, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, let's talk about Calgary.
Calgary right now is Toronto is 9-9-4. Calgary's 10-10-3. They lost yesterday. We were just talking about that game. Monahan and Goudreau were both -5. And when your top players are playing like that, you're in trouble. Now it's not just them because they're at least putting up points, but defensively they're not really good. I mean they're overplaying David Rittich, who I thought it was going to be more of a 1A 1B with him and Talbot, but they're playing Rittich a lot. And this team has too much talent to be playing this way. I'm getting to the point where I think similar to the Leafs, it's going to be a roster move that Treliving makes more than they're not going to fire Bill Peters after a couple years.
I think Treliving is on thin ice here. I think he is the one that's going to lose his job because
he's not in season, Russ.
I don't know about that.
It'll be tough to do it in season for them, but
it would be tough. But hear me out.
It never makes any sense to fire GM in season. I think.
Why in the world did you bring in Cam Talbot to barely play?
Yeah, that's
it didn't show anybody any reason to be a strong number one. Now that falls on Peters, but it also falls on the GM because he probably brought in a goalie that he felt like could play more, and that's not happening. So there's that. The Valimaki injury was big. Yeah. People don't realize how good that kid is in all situations.
Yeah,
but they did manage to re-pull back Mark Stone,
Michael
Stone. I always get him confused.
Yeah,
Michael Stone, who they basically had waived and then had to bring him back because of that injury.
Yeah,
decent defenseman, but that defense core is not what it should be. And we've talked about it for a couple of years now, and they really haven't done anything other than lose guys to injury. So now it looks worse.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I mean, and the three coaches that I think and I don't think Peters is in trouble necessarily, but the three coaches that are in trouble in my mind are Babcock, Peters, and the Detroit guy. I can't think of his name.
Blashill. They didn't have any expectations.
Right. I know, but all three of them are Babcock people, right? Like they're all like they're all come from the Babcock world.
And
for what it's worth, I mean, that's probably just a stupid coincidence, but I'm just saying that they all have that. They all were like the people.
And I was thinking, and this is just wild thought, because we know the Leafs right now might be interested in a shakeup. We know that Calgary might be interested in a shakeup. Would you, if you were the Leafs or if you were the Flames, would you do a 1-for-1 Tyson Berry for Travis Hamonic?
Hamonic won't do it, and he probably has a no trade to stop it.
Yeah, he really wants to be there.
That's the problem. He's got that family situation.
The whole reason to stay there in the first place.
The other UFA defenseman I
wouldn't even do it as a player for player thing if I was Leafs, though. I think you're stepping down.
Right. The other UFA defenseman for them is TJ Brody, and he makes too much for the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if the Leafs follow through on trading Brody, it's going to end up being for a first-round pick and a prospect or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Recoup the first round. And the thing is, like I said, their first round pick is lottery protected. This draft is supposedly very good. So if they miss the playoffs, they will get a really good young player with that pick.
And they will pick another forward. And then the problem is because that's usually what happens.
That was the first rounder for them, and that was a while ago, but he was.
Yeah, but their last two,
hold on,
and their last two first-round picks were defensemen.
I know, but when you get up top at the top of the draft like that, it gets more tempting to not do that. Like
Shillington was a first-rounder too, and what they found out is he really doesn't have an offensive game.
Yeah, but that could be okay for them as long as he is really, really good defensively.
Good skater, decent defender, good puck mover, but he doesn't have an offensive game, and even Valimaki isn't a high-end offensive guy. He'll give you some offense, but he's not a high-end offensive guy. So they haven't been able to take advantage of getting like that perfect point power play guy. No. not taking advantage of that.
Well, I'm just looking this up because somebody just said something in the chat, and I want to make sure. Okay, Russ. Here's something that is stunning. Mark Jankowski, 20 games played, 0 goals, 0 assists, -10.
That is hard to believe.
That's just nuts.
But who's he playing with? Is he on the fourth line? Like, that's the whole thing. That is not Jankowski's game to be on a fourth line.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Probably not to get any points, though.
Right now, they have 4 players who have 17 or more points, and then it drops. Giordano has 13, and then it drops to 9. And it's, you've got Milan Lucic, 3 points in 21 games. Frolik, 3 points in 21 games. Sam Bennett, 5 points in 20 games. So they're getting absolutely
no
secondary offense whatsoever.
Okay, so a few things there. We talked about Frolik last year, had that crazy year with shooting percentage. He was never going to get close to that. He's not a high-end guy. He gets some goals. So that's Sam Bennett's been dropping forever. Like, he should have been traded last year. That's on True Living. He had some value last year. Yeah. Now it's going to be harder to trade Sam Bennett. He has not, really ever been what they thought he would be, but he at least was okay. Now, if he's not okay, now this could be wrong, but here's what the fourth line looks like when you look it up online. Jankowski, Tobias Reeder, and Michael Frolik. Like, how is Jankowski going to do well on that line? Seriously.
Yeah. Well, Tobias Reeder.
I actually love Tobias Reeder every year for the last 3 years.
I've always been a big Tobias Reeder fan.
But I'm just saying that is not the optimal line.
Eklund, president of the Tobias Reeder and Thomas Grice fan club.
I am not a Thomas Grice fan.
And I'm
definitely a fan of. I'm just not a Robert Leonard fan either. But I'm not. But I'm definitely not. I am a Tobias Reeder fan. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jankowski's not a super high end guy either, but he should be able to score 15 goals in this league. But he has to have some players to play with him. He should be on a third line. But again, what's their third line? I mean, again, so here's the third line. Lucic. Why is Lucic on the third line? Derek Ryan and Dylan Dubé. Like, Derek Ryan and Milan Lucic are really fourth line players.
That is a weak bottom six. Let's just put it there. I mean, for a team that finished first in the conference last year, that is a very weak, or any team that's a weak bottom six, but that's definitely a weak bottom six for them.
And that's a part of their problem, is expecting too much from the top six because they've been getting it. God forbid they don't score. Where are they getting it from?
Well, okay. I want to add.
Dube's only played 1 game, so that's obviously not.
And like Gesmer says in the chat room, Noah Hannafin's a -11, so that's that's a
okay. So let's talk about Hannafin for a minute.
Yeah,
Hannafin is a good defenseman. He was never, and you heard me say it on the show.
Yeah.
He was never going to be a 60-point guy. He was always going to be like a 35-point guy and play good defense. But you still have to have a decent partner with him. Who's he paired with?
I think they're playing Giordano with Brody, so I'm assuming they're playing Hannafin with what was it? I'm sorry.
Someone help us in the chat room. Yeah,
please. Hold on.
We'll get it going.
Giordano that's usually plays with Brody, so Hannafin and Hamonic. That would be 2 righties, though. That's
allowed. It's allowed. It's not the law. You can do that.
Okay, but that's the thing. So if he's playing with Hammond,
playing with Stone, they're saying
Michael Stone.
I mean, Stone is a little past it. I mean, you can't blame Hammond for that.
All right, there you go.
Right, and they just signed him to an extension, so he's not somebody I think that they want to move. So it's sort of a blip. Let's switch to this because I heard some interesting chatter over the weekend regarding. The Kovalchuk thing popped up last week, and it looked like he's never playing for them again. And apparently, I think it was Elliot Friedman was saying on one of his podcasts that sort of the league touched base with the Kings and said you can't really sit him for no good reason.
Yeah.
And that would sort of take away any chance of his value being.
It's really funny how the Kings did it. He really pissed off. Like,
wait, hold on. Tell John Tortorella or Lane Vigneault or Mike Babcock that a player can't sit for no good reason, because I would argue that they have done that in their careers.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way of not making this separate.
What they're concerned about with is Kovalchuk is basically shown no heartbeat whatsoever. They got a bunch of young kids that they don't want him to be their role model. So this is, I mean that's the whole thing. I guess what they're trying to do is get him, to jumpstart a little bit and show a little effort. I mean, but that's Kovalchuk. He's always relied on supreme talent to be the thing that defines him. And now, once that talent starts to slip away, if he gets a little slower, then he's not going to be a difference maker. They should have known this when they signed him to the contract, and now they're stuck. And that
here's where I think he could help them, and that's with Prohorkin. Like, you have Prohorkin. You would think, if nothing else, he'd be able to help that kid.
He's never been a really good mentor type.
I know.
I mean, the guy that I wanted to talk about, well, Russ is getting his cat, has to do with the Rangers a little bit. But the other rumor that's out there that the Rangers have offered up Elias Anderson for Jesse Pujärvi, and I've been looking at that one too. I haven't been able to find anybody to really tell me that that's the case. I
have heard that out there, Rack.
It's definitely out there. I know Larry Brooks wrote about it.
Yeah,
because I did some research to see where it was coming from, and I found it in Larry Brooks' column.
Russ, if you're the Rangers, if you're Jeff Gorton, would you do Elias Anderson for Pujärvi?
Hesitantly, because I really feel like they're misusing Elias Anderson in New York. But the problem is, if you bring in Pujärvi into the New York situation, there's all of a sudden there's tons of expectations, which I think is the worst thing for Pujärvi right now. But if you're asking me if that's going to be the trade, sure, I would accept it.
Yeah, would Edmonton do it? I mean, it seems like Edmonton should do it. Edmonton should do anything that they can get. If they can get something like that, that's a half decent possibility that the player has potential, but maybe hasn't shown it yet. That's the kind of thing you're gonna have to do. That's the kind of trade you have to make.
What thing you're getting for him?
Yeah, that's the kind of trade you have to make. Otherwise, they're like a 3rd round draft pick, I think, or something like that. Yeah. But not a 1st or 2nd, I don't think, at this point. But yeah, maybe a 3rd. I don't know. Elias Anderson, I agree with you on that, and I don't.
I mean, that's something that could be sold. I mean, to Edmonton, he's a top 7. I think it was the 7th overall pick. Russ Anderson.
Yeah, right around that. Yep.
And Pujärvi was 4th overall. I mean, Anderson is younger, so maybe there's a little less baggage in terms of him potentially being I don't think he's a bust. I don't think he's
not a bust.
Yeah, I think he's got talent. I was very impressed with him at the World Junior here in Buffalo when he played for Sweden, and understood why he threw the medal into the crowd.
That's right. That was him. Great moment. I forgot about that.
I talked to him right after.
Yeah. But Pujärvi has got to get out of Edmonton. That organization is toxic for him. He doesn't trust them. He doesn't care that they've had this sort of flash in the pan start where they're exceeding all expectations. He wants out of there, and I don't blame him. So I hope for his sake he gets moved before December the 1st and gets a chance to play someplace else and succeeds.
I want to talk about 1 second, since you brought up the Rangers, the best bargain in hockey, and that is Tony DeAngelo at $925,000 with 6 goals and 15 points in 18 games. Arizona couldn't use him. Tampa couldn't use him. Somehow the Rangers are using him, and somehow he's scoring a boatload of points from them.
Yeah.
And how much are they going to have to pay him next year?
You worry about it next year.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, I mean, he took I think it was the arbitration settlement or it was the qualifying offer or something. Or no, it was right before the season.
It was right before. He just took
right. So he bet on himself. He took $925. He's putting up big numbers. They're probably going to have to clear salary next year, probably buy out Mark Stahl or buy out Brendan Smith. But they're going to have to pay him.
Yep.
And in a couple years, they're going to have to pay up on Adam Fox too. So
in 79 games, he has 45 points in these 2 years for the Rangers. So end of the day, you'll happily pay him. Now, again,
sure,
I still would put Mark Stahl in the lineup so you can have some trade value, because Brendan Smith adds nothing. That's just me personally. Brendan Smith played like 6 minutes the other night. It's like, why are you even bothering?
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's really all the time we have. I do have to mention Stamkos' 400th goal. That was good.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That was a big deal and a great goal.
We actually talked about that on the show years ago, because I remember looking at it and thinking he would be the fastest guy to that.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, it was a hell of a goal too. You got to watch it. It was typical Stamkos.
And Hall of Fame night tonight in Toronto with Jim Rutherford, Haley Wickenheiser, Vaclav Netamansky, Sergei Zubov. I'm missing a couple.
Jerry York. I want to mention York. So with the Steve Simmons backlash saying that it was just ridiculous that Jerry York was coaching instead of being at the Hall of Fame game so he can get announced at the ACC, he won 2 games over the weekend for his hockey team, and now he is going to be at his ceremony on Monday. He did it. He did the right thing. Steve Simmons was wrong.
No, that's crazy. I agree. No,
I like Steve, so I'm not going to say anything.
I like him too, but he was wrong.
No, Steve's a great guy, but this situation where you have to respect it. This is why a guy like that gets into the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
That's what I posted. I said this is what makes Jerry York Jerry York.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Again, remember go to patreon.com/hockey if you want to support the show in any way, shape, or form, or you can just like, subscribe, thank us. No, you don't have to thank us. Like, subscribe, share us around.
Thank us with your money.
Yeah, I guess with your money, but you can share it around, and we really would appreciate that, of course, because we want to keep growing the podcast as much as possible. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will